Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you happen to find yourself. My name is Carmen Mazzera. I serve as Executive Director of APSIA, the Association of Professional Schools of International Affairs. We're so glad to welcome you to this webinar today, wrestling with some of those myths and realities about the grad school application process. This session is part of the 2022 APSIA Diversity Forum, for which we are so grateful to have many distinguished investors who enable us to deliver this kind of programming to you. In particular, I want to thank the Johns Hopkins SAIS, the Open Society Foundations, Princeton School of Public and International Affairs, the Robertson Foundation for Government, Texas A&M's Bush School, the USC Master of Public Diplomacy Program, and the University of Washington Jackson School, who in particular enable us through their investments to deliver this kind of programming. We are going to turn the floor over now to Professor Tony Lucero, who will be guiding this conversation. As we go through, if you have any technical issues, please feel free to send me a direct message. Otherwise, we'll capture your questions as we go through the chat. And with that, Tony, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Carmen. Hi, everybody. As Carmen said, my name is Tony Lucero. I am a faculty member at the University of Washington, where I teach both in international studies and the comparative history of ideas department. I'm actually the incoming chair of that department, so I have a lot to learn in the next few weeks. This is always a fun event. I'm happy to be here again. We've done this in the past and always have a great time in conversation with our really distinguished panelists. I want to briefly introduce them to you and also just let you know that we are most concerned with what's on your mind. So please use that chat box or raise your hand, or however you'd like to vocalize your uncertainty, your question, your comment, whatever it is. We really would love to meet you where you're at, and we'll try to dispel some of those myths that may be out there and that may be an obstacle as you try to think about your path towards graduate school. So without further ado, let me just say a word about these wonderful people you see on your screen. Allyson Hill is the Associate Dean of Admissions at the University of Southern California's Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism. She earned her AB degree in English Literature with a minor in secondary education from Oberlin College, and she has a graduate degree in higher education from The Ohio State University. Allyson has more than 25 years of experience in higher education, including work at The Ohio State University, Denison, Southern Methodist University in Texas, UCLA, Pomona College, and she's worked in a variety of programs, including mentorship programs, and she has been a very popular speaker at a variety of high school, community college programs, career days, and of course, this APSIA panel. In a second, I'll ask her just to say a little bit more about her home institution and a little bit more about her background. Our other distinguished and also equally well-dressed panelist here is Ariel Matos, who is the Associate Director of Graduate Admissions at Princeton University School of Public and International Affairs. And in full disclosure, I am a Princeton alum, so we can do the secret handshake later. Ariel is a proud Trenton, New Jersey native. He's a first-generation college graduate from the College of New Jersey. He earned his MA in Organizational Leadership from Rider University, where he graduated at the very top of his class. Ariel possesses a wealth of experience in higher education, as Allyson does as well. And Ariel specializes especially in admissions, financial aid, and program development with federal TRIO programs. He will also say a word or two about his home institution. So why don't I just turn it over to Allyson and Ariel just to say maybe another word of introduction about yourselves and your backgrounds, and then I will kick open the conversation with one myth, and then we'll see if folks want to put more questions in the chat or in the conversation, and we can take it from there. So Allyson, would you like to say a little bit more about yourself or your institution?
Sure. Well, I'm really happy to be here, first of all, and really delighted to share with this amazing panel again on myths about graduate school and the international space that we all occupy. I am at the University of Southern California, located in Los Angeles, and the Masters of Public Diplomacy program was actually one of the first with the name of public diplomacy. We are particularly proud of the fact that our institution is located on the Pacific Rim with real ties to not only Mexico and Canada, but to Asia. And at all points west from where we are. So it really is a very dynamic program based on providing opportunities for you to pursue your particular interests. The core courses are somewhat limited so that you have electives so that you can choose the path that you'd like to follow. So I hope that if you have questions about our program that you will reach out to me following this session. Our contact information will be provided. So I'd like to turn it to my colleague from Princeton.
Allyson, thank you very much. As Professor Lucero mentioned, my name is Ariel. I'm very excited to be here with you all today. One of the things that I really want to just highlight is I am a first generation low-income college graduate. The process and pathway through higher education wasn't very easy for me, particularly because my parents didn't really understand the process. Right? My parents immigrated here into this country from Dominican Republic. They've been here now for more than 40 years and still cannot speak very much English. So, for me, making my way through education, I really had to rely on the support and the guidance of advisors, such as those that you're receiving through the APSIA program here to really help me through that process. So I'm really grateful for all the advisors that are out there. As mentioned, I am the Associate Director of Graduate Admissions at the Princeton School of Public and International Affairs. We are one of 42 graduate programs at the larger Princeton University. We have 3 graduate programs on offer: a 2-year Master in Public Affairs, a 1-year Master in Public Policy, which is specifically for mid-career professionals. And for us, that means those who have a minimum of at least 7 years of full-time work experience. And lastly, we have a Doctor of Philosophy in Public Affairs. Altogether, we'll bring in about 100 students across our 3 graduate programs, so approximately 70 into our 2-year MPA, about an additional 20 into our MPP, and an additional 8 students or so within our PhD programs. There are 4 fields of concentration that students can pursue at Princeton SPIA, and those are international relations, international development, domestic policy, and economics and public policy. In addition to that, we have 3 optional certificates available to our students to pursue, and those will fall under health and health policy, science, technology, and environmental policy, and lastly, urban policy. So we are a small and tight-knit community at Princeton SPIA. We find that our students they're bringing into our school an incredible depth of diversity, racial, ethnic diversity. They're bringing diversity of experience, philosophies, political affiliations, right? And really it is this diversity that makes the Princeton School of Public and International Affairs such an amazing place. And just one thing, so having a financial aid background, one of the things that I often talk to students about is the cost of their education. What level of investment are they making in their own education? And I'm very proud to report that at the Princeton School, our investment is in you. It's in our students. We fully fund every student who is admitted into the school for our graduate programs. We'll fully cover the cost of tuition, student fees. We'll provide a very robust health insurance package, and we also do provide a generous living stipend, right? So when you're thinking about Princeton, think of the harder part is getting in, but once you're into the school, we have an amazing network, an amazing cohort of students, faculty, staff, alumni who are going to help support you throughout the rest of your time in graduate school and also beyond. So very excited to be here with you all today. Looking forward to your questions and just helping you become a little bit more comfortable with the process of applying into graduate school.
Thank you, Ariel. Thank you, Allyson. I also would be remiss if I didn't say a word about my own home institution, the Henry M. Jackson School of International Affairs. It's someone described us in a really interesting way. They said that, there's lots of wonderful policy schools, international schools, and we're sort of like the platypus of those schools. We're not quite, we're not quite a mammal, we're not quite a bird. And what that means is that we're radically interdisciplinary. Area studies has always been the focus of our school, and that means that we embrace the humanities, the social sciences, and to a lesser degree than some of our colleagues, policy studies. So we have MA degrees in various area studies programs. We have a PhD program, which is considered really suitable for both applied work and also academic work. It's a little bit unique. And we also have concurrent degrees with the Evans School of Public Policy, which is our another institution at the University of Washington. So a variety of offerings, but you're already getting a sampling of differences in the graduate landscape. My colleagues are from wonderful private institutions. I'm at a state institution. And so some of those financial pieces will be different, as Ariel has already suggested. So please bring up those questions. We're happy to say more. And while I think all of us would love for you to pick our individual schools, we really want what's best for you. So really, we'll give you good advice. We will put the occasional plug in for, for our home institution, of course, but we really want you to be at the best place for you. So with that in mind, let me just open up the conversation with one, maybe it's really kind of a two-sided myth. And one side of it is that you must go straight from undergrad to graduate school. And the other side of that myth is that the opposite, that you should, leave plenty of time and then go to grad school later. So is there a right way? Should you wait? Should you not wait? What is the right path to go from an undergraduate career to that graduate career? And maybe I'll ask Allyson to start us off, and then Ariel. Oh, we still can't hear you, Allyson.
That's okay. The thing that's so interesting about the pathway is that it's truly individual in a lot of cases, but institutions may also have guidelines in terms of the students that they're looking for. So, for example, at the Annenberg School, it is possible in our public diplomacy program for students to come directly from their bachelor's degree. But like my colleagues, we also have a professional degree program where you should have at least a minimum of 5 years experience. And so there's a program where you can come directly to us from an undergraduate bachelor's degree, but there's also a program that's really designed for the working professionals. So it truly comes down to what program and where are you in deciding that grad school is the right place for you. So I'll let Ariel pick up from there.
Allyson, thank you so much for that and for transitioning it over. I would like to mirror exactly what it is that Allyson mentioned. It really depends on you as a student, where you are academically, professionally, and where you aspire to be. And also, what are the requirements to get into your aspired profession, right? There are some professions that, it's very common for students to go directly from undergrad to grad, and then into a profession. However, there are other professions that there is great benefit in accumulating some work experience prior to starting that graduate study. Because what happens is, after gaining the work experience and then you begin the graduate level study, you can actually tie what it is that you're learning, the theories that you're learning in class, to real world experiences and applications, right? So for us as an institution at Princeton, we don't have a hard requirement that students have some level of work experience at the time of application. However, it is a strong preference that we do have, right? When we're talking about something that is as personal as public policy, we want to make sure that our students have some level of experience, out in the world, developing those leadership skills, hearing from their constituents, developing positive impact within their communities, which they will then bring back into our graduate programs, back into our school, and help to apply the principles that they're learning in the classroom to those real life experiences, right? So again, a majority of the students at Princeton within our two-year MPA program will have some level of work experience. On average, they'll have between 2 to 5 years at the time of application. There is a small cohort of students who are admitted directly from undergrad, but often those students will have an additional tie back into graduate school. For example, those students who have been awarded a fellowship such as a Pickering or the Wrangell or even the Payne, right? And the reason for that is because those fellowships have a direct tie, they have a direct career tie once they finish with the graduate studies. So it really depends on the institution, depends on your career field. One of the things that I wanted to talk about is that there isn't only one way into graduate school. There are so many different ways, depending on who it is you are, where you're going, where you would like to, so don't think that there's only one pathway to get in.
Thank you both. With that in mind, and as folks, gather their own thoughts and questions, I had maybe a related question related to what you both just said, and that is how clear should students be about what they want to be when they grow up as they start this graduate application process? Do you need to know exactly, like, I want to be in the State Department, I want to be this, how would you recommend as they're thinking about these application statements, what's the level of kind of like just clarity on the future that students should have? And maybe this time we'll start with you, Ariel.
Thank you. So personally, as an admissions professional, I feel that students should have a greater level of clarity regarding their professional aspirations when they're starting to think about graduate school. I find that your undergraduate career is largely general in nature, right? You're going to have to take a lot of liberal arts, liberal education classes to really round out your degree, to help you to teach you how to think, right? As an academician, that's what you're going to experience in undergrad. And then once you get into graduate school, like the coursework is much more filtered towards your professional aspirations, right? So graduate school is often about 2 years if you're going for a traditional master's degree. So there's a lot less time, a lot less coursework that you're going to take in graduate school. So there isn't as much time to really just kind of like navigate around and kind of find yourself at some point throughout the process, right? Additionally, there is, in some instances, there is less funding available for graduate school, right? So as an undergrad, if you qualify financially, you could qualify for the federal Pell Grant, you could qualify for a work study opportunity, right? There's more funding available. However, in graduate school, it's a different experience, right? So personally, as an admissions professional, I would recommend students to have much clearer guidance regarding where it is that they would like to go with their professional degrees, when they're thinking about the application process into graduate school. Allyson?
Terrific. I definitely agree with 100% of that. I would add that you need to be at least clear enough for your application for an admissions committee, whether it's faculty or staff, to understand your fit for the program from your own perspective. And so again, programs are short. If it's a year or 2 years, you really don't have time to discover yourself. And you won't, in most cases, get there if you're not demonstrating some level of clarity in your writing samples or your personal statement, whatever the institution may require. So I often tell students, you need to be as sure as you can be for the application process. And if you are selecting a school that's interdisciplinary, as you've heard, that offers electives, that is not so set that you don't have any room for flexibility, that might not be the right place for you. But if there is that flexibility, that opportunity to discover within a larger field like public policy, international affairs, public diplomacy, that's the direction. Examining the school beforehand and understanding how flexible it could be once you're enrolled becomes very important. But I think it's critical to be at least clear for the application process, or you may never have the opportunity to join that particular program.
Thank you both. If I could add just a little bit more, and I agree with everything that's already been said, but one thing that I think is important to know as you write that application statement is it's not a contract. You will change your mind about what the direction of your interest and maybe even your professional goals may be. This is just an example of how you think. What are the ways you can articulate your interest, your skill set, your experiences? What's that story that the admissions committee can get a sense of you as a person? So that's really important. With that in mind, I guess I would like to bring in one more myth about who really is fit for graduate school. Is this a superhuman enterprise? Do you have to be like Ariel and graduate at the top of your class to do this? Do you have to have a 4.0? Do you have to just crush those GREs? I mean, is this really for mere mortals, Allyson?
Yes, graduate school is for superheroes and mere mortals. I think the critical thing to keep in mind is that there needs to be evidence that you can do graduate level work. That evidence and what's important for that institution will be spelled out in the application guidelines. For example, many graduate schools have suspended or waived the GRE, or they never required the GRE or the GMAT. Rarely, if ever, will you see an absolute GPA that has no flexibility. There might be a recommended, there might be a minimum, but again, the whole point, as I like to stress with students and advisors, an admission decision is an academic decision. Yes, we're going to look at a lot of different things about you. We want to get to know you as an individual and your passion and your goals and your objectives. But ultimately, we also want to know that you are going to be successful in the classroom as you pursue this degree, as you pursue this field for your future career. So yes, we do need to know that you can handle the work, but we're not looking for all 4.0s. Even at the undergraduate level, schools don't look for all 4.0s. They're looking for people with different backgrounds and interests, people who've overcome a lot, people who are first generation or non-traditional students, if you will, people who've been in the workforce and are changing their mind. And so all of these different paths may not all equal 3.99 GPA, and that's okay. But that's another reason why you really want to examine the school that you're looking for to get a sense of what's important to them in terms of academic background for a successful applicant. Ariel?
Allyson, thank you. And Tony, you make me blush. So thank you. I just wanted to be fully transparent, with all of the students who are with us today and prospective students, that I did not have a perfect 4.0 GPA when I graduated from undergrad. I experienced lots of trials and adversity during my time in undergrad. And what I find that, overcoming a lot of those challenges really helped me to become much more resolute about my education, right? So although I wasn't a great student in undergrad, I made sure that once I started my graduate school program, that was my opportunity to really showcase how much it is that I've learned about myself, about my passion and commitment towards my field. And that really propelled and motivated me, right, to perform as best as I could in graduate school. So for me, graduate school was an opportunity for me to prove not only to others, but more importantly to myself that I could do it. Right. So in terms, I completely agree with what Allyson mentioned. You don't have to have a perfect 4.0 GPA to get into graduate school. You don't have to have a perfect GRE score to get into Princeton, right? That is not a requirement. I just want to share that, what we're looking for is in terms of graduate school, often what we're looking for is the right fit. Right, we want to make sure that who it is that you are as a student, as a future professional, really aligns, with our academic institutions, with our mission, with the types of students that we are trying to educate and prepare to go into the professional working world. We want to make sure that there's alignment there. I'll give you an idea. At Princeton University, the number one thing that really drives everything that we do is this evidence of your commitment towards public service, right? Like, how are you committing yourself towards making your communities a better place, a safer space, a healthier place, right? That's really what drives our admissions process, right? We want to make sure that you're going to be a great steward of the education that you're going to receive at Princeton and really reinvest that back into your community, right? So that's going to be the number one thing that we're going to look for within every application. Of course, yes, we do look at an academic transcript. We'll look at GRE scores, but we're also going to look at evidence of your leadership. We're going to look at that work experience. We're going to look at how others view you through your letters of recommendation, right? So at Princeton, and across many of our graduate schools, we have an honest and holistic application review process. We really look at everything when we're making a determination for your admissibility into our schools. But again, I want to be clear and transparent. As Allyson mentioned, we're going to make sure that you have the capacity to learn what we teach. Right? We don't want to admit students who are not going to perform well academically within our schools. And we also want you to have a great time while you're with us. It's no fun if you're, stressed out and anxious every day until 6 o'clock in the morning trying to get your work done and you're still not getting the material. We want to make sure that you're going to be able to successfully navigate that curriculum. And just one other thing really that I want to address is that when you're applying into different graduate schools, it's important to understand what those schools are going to teach you and what they're looking for. We are a policy school at Princeton, but we teach policy through a quantitative lens, right? So we want to make sure that the students who are applying into our schools have some foundational knowledge about quantitative principles, right? That they have taken a microeconomics class or a college level algebra class or a statistics class. Understanding that so much of the work that you're going to take at Princeton really centers this quantitative coursework, right? You want to make sure that you have some level of that somewhere within your transcript, somewhere within your work experience, to give the admissions committee some level of confidence that you're going to be able to successfully navigate that curriculum.
Great. I've got a couple of questions coming in through a direct message on the chat. So let me share them with the panel. One question from Kenyatta is kind of picking up where both of you left off about how the admissions committee is really thinking about those applications. You know, I think I take your point, Ariel, about being holistic, but when it comes down to it, what are the things that the admissions committee is really prioritizing? What are the things that really are gonna, you know, this might be more important than that? I mean, I know that's a hard question to answer in the abstract, but how are admissions committees really evaluating these things? Apologies for my 10-year-old who I'm currently borrowing his room. Sorry.
I love it.
Go ahead, Allyson.
I'll go ahead and go first. The most important thing for our public diplomacy program actually is your statement of purpose. And pretty much what Ariel shared about wanting to know who you are as a person, what you've done, where you've been, what's driving this commitment, where do you see yourself going, is basically what those prompts really stress, because that's what our faculty want to know about you as an individual. There's holistic review, there's a look at every single thing that you've submitted, letters of recommendation, transcripts, all of that. But really, if there was one thing that I had to pinpoint as most important to the faculty, it truly is your background. Have you lived internationally? Have you lived in different kinds of communities? In your own community, how has your interest in international affairs or issues been sparked? What did you do in college? How does that relate to what you're now interested in doing? And so that personal statement becomes that real marker of who you are as an individual and why this program is a particularly good fit for you.
And Tony, thank you so much for allowing me an opportunity to jump in. I just wanted to share, be mindful that admissions committees are committees of people, and people will have different things that they're looking for within the application process. You know, we have some faculty members who are economists, so naturally they're going to look at your quantitative background to make sure that you're going to be able to learn what they have to teach in their classes. I was an English major in undergrad, so for me, the personal narratives, the statement of purpose, supplemental essays, those are my jam, right? I'm going to spend a lot of time in those things because I find that, for me, I find so much richness in being able to understand who a person is sort of outside of the numbers, outside of the GPA, outside of the GRE score, right? Like I want you to tell me exactly who it is that you are. So we often tell our applicants to tell us their story in a way in which only they can, right? As Allyson mentioned, like we want, as graduate schools, we want to see, you know, what it is that you're going to bring into our community that someone else won't bring, what perspectives you're going to bring into our communities that may not already be present there. You know, so really dig in and lean into who it is that you are when you're writing those essays on the application process. But again, just remember that, you know, when you're considering graduate schools, just make sure that you're reading all of that, you're understanding well the program that you're applying into, what the expectations are going to be. And also make sure that you're following the directions, right? When it comes time to complete that application, make sure that you're writing to the essays that are provided, that are afforded to you. If the application is not, you know, requiring that you provide, you know, a 40-page resume, like don't feel the need to embellish. Also understand that there are real people, you know, just like us who are on the panel, who are going to read your applications. You know, certainly if I wanted to, I can speak with, you know, $50 words, you know, but that's not what we're looking for in the application review process. We just want to understand who it is that you are. We want to be able to understand how it is that you are getting your points across, and to better understand your perspectives, right? So just be yourself. If you could filter all that down into 2 words, just be yourself in the application process.
I think that's fantastic advice. If I could add just another word on it, these statements are hard. This genre is difficult. You know, speaking about yourself is always a little weird. So you can't do this by yourself. You really need to lean on those folks who know you, but also who know the process. So you have professors, advisors, friends who've gone through the process. It's really important that you give yourself some time to go through a few drafts of these application statements, so you can really make sure that it sounds that sounds like you, because often we write in the ways we think people want us to speak, and that often is a trap. So try to avoid that, and the best way to do that is to get some help. That's true for most things in life. So just really reach out. I do want to stay on process for a second. We've got a question from Tiffany about interviews. Are interviews part of the graduate process? And if so, what advice might you have about this? Ariel, let's start with you.
Sure. Actually, I think Allyson would be a better responder to this question. At Princeton, we don't have an interview process. So I'm gonna, if that's okay, Allyson,
Sure.
Can I turn it over to you?
Sure. Well, we don't have a formal interview process either. There are far more students than we have faculty and staff who could accommodate the number of people who may want interviews. However, we offer information sessions that are led by our faculty, and there's always a question and answer period, as well as an invitation to follow up with faculty if there are specific questions about the academic program, the faculty member's background, their interests, and their research. We have offered, prior to 2020, opportunities for students to come to campus, to meet us on campus, to meet with faculty if that was something of particular interest to them. That will come back in some forms this fall, as it did last fall, but there is no formal interview process. However, some of our schools, sister schools that are part of the APSIA membership, offer interviews. And so that's a part of what we've stressed a couple of times, of the importance of knowing the school to which you are applying, looking at the requirements for admission, and making sure that you're following up on that, whether it's an interview with a faculty member, a staff member, or an alum. You really want to take advantage of those opportunities as a way to supplement what's already in your application. You know, that first impression of meeting someone and talking with someone who's related to an institution can be a very positive experience. And in most cases, unless you totally don't talk, you cannot fail an interview. In most cases, if you just sit there frozen, you probably won't do a really good job. But it really is an opportunity to get to know you and your interests, and to supplement what's in print, what's in your application about you. So
that's great advice. And if you don't mind, Allyson, I'd like to just follow up a little bit by just asking, should students feel like they should be reaching out to faculty, to folks like you, admissions office? Like, is that something that do I need to be making that campaign? Do I need to really be kind of like trying to sell myself in that way, or is there a risk of coming off a little too strong? Like, what's the right level of engagement between an applicant and the institution of their dreams?
Yeah, there's definitely the fear of coming off too strong. There's also the fear of coming off as someone who did not read, who did not do their research, and is asking questions of faculty that they should not be asking. And you wonder, what questions shouldn't I ask a faculty member? If the institution provides you with application guidelines, to ask a faculty member the deadline is just not good. So if you have actual questions about the academic program, about the quality of student experience, what are alums doing beyond what you've already read on a website, I think that is a legitimate question to raise to a faculty member. When I went to graduate school, I didn't even know there were admissions people. It was an academic person who reached out to me. It was that academic person that I did everything. I turned in an application. I did all of that, but I didn't really meet an admissions person. And I think one of the great things about our graduate degree programs through APSIA are that we're very personal, that we are known entities. You see our faces, you know our names, we'll give you our email, and you can reach out to ask the question that you might not want to ask a faculty member, like, does it really matter if I X, Y, Z? And we're happy to answer those questions for you, because we're really advocating for you in the process. So just being mindful of what information is already out there, and when you have questions about things that you've read, to know that the faculty typically want questions about the academic life, And admissions will take anything. We'll take any of your questions. And we're really great referrals too, because it's like, that's a great question. You should talk to this faculty member, or that is a terrific concern. Financial aid is the place for you, not the admissions office, if it's, if admission and financial aid are separate. And so that would be the advice I have, Tony.
Thank you so much, Allyson. Ariel, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I thank you. I fully agree with everything Allyson mentioned. I feel that, faculty are not they're not responsible for responding to questions of prospective students, and I feel that there could be an opportunity for a misperception to happen, right? So let's say that you're a prospective student, you're really excited about working with a potential faculty person, and you write to them a beautiful soliloquy, right? And they never respond back to you. You as an applicant may then think, oh, well, this person doesn't like me, or I'm not good enough for the school, so I'm not going to apply. Right? Just understand that in most cases, it's not their responsibility to respond to prospective students. Now, if you're admitted into the school, then that conversation changes, right? But if you do have a direct question for faculty, what I would encourage you to do is, if there is an event where faculty are present, such as an open house, or if like specific programs where faculty members are presenting, that would be a perfect opportunity to then engage with those faculty members. But again, as Allyson mentioned, all other questions pertaining to admissions, application deadlines, what it is that we're looking for as a committee, financial aid eligibility, those types of things, the admissions office, we're well adept at answering those questions. Please feel free to direct those questions to us. And then as Allyson mentioned, if the question or the conversation does call for a faculty member, we will make that introduction for you, right? So again, for all things pertaining to the admissions process, please reserve those questions for the admissions office.
I wanted to add one other thing, and that is, internationally, some institutions, this is the way you get admitted to a program, that a faculty member will identify you from whatever crowd, or from a letter, from some interaction with one of their own colleagues. And it really is a one-on-one personal decision about whether or not you're going to be admitted to the program. And that doesn't quite happen that way in the United States. And so we often see international students who send the soliloquy and send all documents except an application. They'll send everything, and they'll address it to a faculty member that they found on the website, because that's the way you get admitted in their home country or where they were educated. That's not how you get admitted in a US-based graduate program at all. And so just be mindful of that.
Allyson, yes, 100%, just yes. Now, what I will say is, if you are thinking about applying into a PhD program, right, it isn't, so for a PhD, it's very important to understand who the faculty members are there at that institution, because you're going to be working so closely with them. Your research is going to be tied very closely with their own. So you want to make sure that the institution has faculty members whose research interests align with your own. However, again, that doesn't mean that you have to connect with them sort of, prior to an offer of admission is made, right? So understand who the faculty members are, understand what their areas of research are, and how your own research aspirations align with those. That will help prepare you, right, for the PhD application process. But again, a majority of the questions, most questions should be facilitated directly through the admissions office.
That's excellent advice. And I just want to appreciate that distinction that was made between MA and PhDs, because as Ariel just said, and speaking as a faculty member, often the admissions committee will reach out to faculty, because if there's not a faculty member who says, yes, I want to work with a student, it won't happen for a PhD program. So for those of you interested in PhD programs, that fit between your interests and a faculty member's interest is crucial. And, I don't think it's a bad idea necessarily to have a short email to those faculty members saying, love your work, are you taking students? Because that's just a good way just to let them know. Everyone always loves a compliment. And also sometimes people will be, on leave or will be, moving to another institution. Short kinds of informational questions like that, and let them know that you're interested. And then you can reserve the follow-up once the admission committee, I think, opens that door a little wider for you. But I think that's really great advice. There is a related question that just came through the chat about folks who are over 40 and the PhD process. Are there special challenges that folks on that side of 40 should think about? Is it too late for a PhD? I'm curious what you all have to say. I have my own thoughts, but Ariel, would you like to start us off?
Sure. So I would say that it's never too late to pursue a doctoral program. The only word of advice I would have is prior to beginning the application process, understand how the PhD will fit in or align with your own professional trajectory. Like, what do you need the PhD for? How will you use it? And ultimately, what do you aspire to do with it? You want to make sure that you're not pursuing a PhD just to collect another degree. And institutions are very cognizant of that. They want to make sure that you're going to be able to contribute that newfound knowledge, back into the academy or back into the world in some way. So you want to make sure that the additional degree, the PhD, does align with your own professional and academic trajectory.
Allyson?
We don't offer a PhD in public diplomacy. However, from my experience with other doctoral programs outside of international relations as well as public diplomacy, some faculty have the concern about the longevity of your career once you earn the degree. So again, it's not to say you will not be admitted, but if it's a particular faculty that's interested in developing long-term scholars to do work, although retirement age is probably going to get to 75 real soon in America because we all look good, feel good, and last a really long time. The issue is how long will you be productive in the discipline? And again, this is something you can ascertain from asking admissions. It's something you can look at in terms of profiles of students. Some programs really like to get them right out of their bachelor's degree because of that longevity and their opportunity to benefit the field over a long, long period of time. So it is a legitimate concern, whoever raised it. I think it is a legitimate concern and something to look at. But it really differs, I believe, and Tony, you can add to this, by discipline, that all disciplines are not exactly the same. Some want you to start early, some don't have that particular concern about how long you're going to be contributing to the field, more so interest in what you're going to contribute to the program and the school and your immediate output in terms of your research.
And can I just jump back in really quickly? I just want to really highlight that PhD doctoral level programs are very different. There are PhDs, there are EDDs, which are shorter in nature. Some programs are part-time, some are virtual, some are fully residential and require that you complete them in 5 years, right? So PhD programs are just like people, they're very different, so you want to understand the program that you're applying to, the time commitment, the financial commitment that is going to be required in order for you to pursue this doctoral program. And you just want to make sure that all of those things are aligning, right? So if you have so much responsibility that you're busy for 20 hours out of the day, and then to expect, you being able to carve out time to pursue a part-time doctoral program that's going to require 30 hours a week, how are you going to manage and balance all of that? So you want to make sure that, again, as we've been saying throughout this conversation, understand the programs that you're applying into, understand where you are personally, academically, professionally, and you want to make sure that there's synergy and alignment within all of those things.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Let me just add a couple of pieces of my own experience from both the faculty perspective, but also thinking about from the applicant's perspective. For the faculty, looking at students who are, maybe a little later point from their undergraduate. I think the benefit of that is that you have a variety of life experiences, which really distinguishes you from others. Because one of the things that we try to do as we admit students is we think about a cohort. So it's not just about you as a student, it's like how are you fitting into a broader group of students? And those differences that you may have had may make you maybe more interesting or intriguing of an applicant or a member of that community coming in. So I think that's definitely something it's not a problem, I guess, is what I want to say. That often can be a source of tremendous richness and strength. From the applicant's point of view, I think it's really crucial that you understand that this PhD process is uncertain if you're thinking about an academic. The academic market is it's a really tough market. So if you think about a PhD, really have a menu of options for yourself. Am I going into this because I really want to be expert in this to do some policy work? Is there a nonprofit path that I want to think about? Is there a way I can see myself doing some kind of advocacy work that really necessitates a certain level of expertise? Am I thinking about maybe perhaps profession abroad where this degree would really do a lot of good for me? You really need to think about those questions, because as you're thinking about this commitment about your resources, but also your time, this is going to be a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of years of your life. And whatever age you are, you really need to make sure this is the right move for you, given those uncertainties that come in with an academic job market. So I would just add that as you think about it. Now, as we're really kind of close to our last part of our conversation, I want to get to one part of the application process that I don't think we've spoken about yet, and that's those letters of recommendation. Would you, Allyson and Ariel, help us give any tips for those letters, because often they can be crucial. And how should students, what strategies or what tricks of the trade might students consider as they go about asking for those letters? Allyson, you want to start us off?
Probably one significant tip is to ensure that your recommender actually knows you. I know that sounds like, of course they know me, but let's just say you work or you're going to school somewhere. Let's say you're in college and the department chair is renowned. Everybody in the profession knows him or her. It would be great to get a letter, because as soon as someone sees, like, oh, Professor whoever. But if Professor whoever doesn't know you, doesn't know the quality of your work, doesn't know how you've grown and developed in the program, in the discipline, in the major, it's not going to be an advantage to you. So getting a letter from someone who knows you well, who actually taught you in a class, who actually supervised your work, is far more valuable than thinking, I need a letter from a congressman, I need a letter from the president of the company, I need a letter from the chair. That's going to impress someone, because at least in my experience at many, many institutions, it does not impress in the way that you may think it does. It's much better to get a letter from someone who truly knows you and your work. So that would be one tip. I'll let Ariel give a tip.
Thank you, Allyson. And to continue what Allyson just mentioned, you want to make sure that you're giving your recommenders enough time to write you an honest, intimate letter of recommendation. Often what I will encourage students to do is, as you're reaching out to them, if you can provide them some context as to what class you took together with them, or where they know you from, or some of the research projects that you all did together. Just like a very quick, just a reminder or a resume of the things that you've done, and also how this program, like how your previous experience with that faculty member may ultimately tie back into your own graduate school aspirations. Just kind of giving them sort of like a quick rundown as to who it is that you are, how it is that you know each other, and why this program is important to you, I think is going to make a huge difference. So don't get into the habit of just writing one blanket email and sending it off to 10 different people who could potentially serve as a recommender for you, because faculty members, they can read into that, right? You want to make sure that you're investing that necessary time, invite a faculty member out for coffee, or try to get together with them, just engage in conversation with them to kind of allow them the opportunity to be reminded of who it is that you are and how awesome it is that you are, so that they can funnel that back into your letter of recommendation. So have the courtesy, give them enough time, give yourself enough time to adequately think about who those recommenders are going to be for your applications.
Another tip would be knowing the possibility that you are going to go to graduate school or even going to work, making it your objective to get to know a couple of faculty members should be something that you do no matter where you are in the college process right now. And I'll talk about college and we'll talk about career later, but make it a point. You know, faculty have open office hours, and all I hear from our faculty is people don't come. I want more people to come. Take advantage of the opportunities they make available to you to get to know them. Certainly you want to get to know the faculty in those classes in which you're doing well, but even think of those classes where maybe there was a little struggle at the beginning and you had this amazing breakthrough. Think of the story that faculty member will be able to tell. So it's not just people who like you where you always got your straight A, but you want to make sure that you are taking the time, and maybe every year of college that you decide, I am going to go to this person's office hours. They're teaching me, I want to get to know them. And more importantly, you want them to get to know you because you will need letters of recommendation in the future. So Ariel, do you have a particular tip related to people who've been out of college?
Sure. So my tip for, if I could just, Allyson, that was fantastic. That word of advice was amazing. What I would, what I wanted to jump to or to piggyback on regarding your last statement was, again, understand the program that you're applying into, understand the type of coursework that you're going to engage with within that program. So for example, at Princeton, our graduate level programs are very quantitative in nature. So it would be really helpful to have an economics faculty member or a math professor write you a letter of recommendation, because for our admissions committee members who are economists, who are math faculty members, to be able to hear from one of their colleagues regarding your own performance in their class is going to be very, very helpful. Right now, for those who may have been outside of the classroom for a few years, I think that my previous recommendation would still ring true. If the faculty members that you have had when you were in school are still available, again, try to schedule some time to meet with them, remind them as to what classes you took together, some of the research that you've done, provide them that, sort of a resume as to who it is that you are and where it is that you hope to go. Now, if you cannot reach any faculty members that you previously had during your undergraduate experience, look at the application requirements, right? Oftentimes, in terms of letters of recommendation, an application will ask for at least one academic faculty member, a professional, someone who works within a professional working world who has some level of experience with you. And then you have an additional option regarding who that last recommender is going to be. I would really lean into those other letters of recommendation. And also if you find it honestly impossible to find an academic letter of recommendation, write to the admissions committee and let them know, right? The application process is one time in which you want to be transparent with the admissions committee. So you want to let them know what your situation is, so that as we begin evaluating your application, we have all of the details in front of us.
If I could add one more thing, from a faculty point of view, faculty members are not to be trusted. Well, what I mean is they are often, for good reasons, busy. I teach classes, sometimes 200 people at a time, and I've been doing this for a minute. So I have thousands of students. So what I tell all my students who are going to be in graduate school and you need letters, you need to make it as easy as possible for those faculty members to sing your praises. What that usually means, practically speaking, is you're going to write them a memo. Dear Professor X, I was in your class X in this year. I wrote this paper, which you said this, and had those comments right there handy. And what I also like to do is I ask my students when I'm writing them letters, I ask them for their greatest hits. What are 3 or 4 of those things that you're most proud of? They can be academic or non-academic, but what are those experiences, those adversities, those awards, those accomplishments? What are things that that really make you you? And that allows me to have a level of specificity in those letters that makes that letter really stand out, because you don't want the 3-sentence letter that says this person did it great, they got a 3.5 in my class, I think they'll do fine. You don't want that. You want you want the faculty members to have those details at their fingertips, and you have control over that. If you give them those things, even if you've been out 5, 10, 15 years, they have that material to craft that letter. You've given them the clay to sculpt that beautiful art piece that is that letter recommendation for you, and you keep it. The other thing around faculty not to be trusted, deadlines. We're bad with these. We're very bad with these. So you really need to have that gentle nudge, like, oh, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Here's that URL again. Here's that, the deadline's just around the corner. Usually automated systems will let you know when faculty have submitted their letter recommendation. Be a squeaky wheel, a polite but squeaky wheel, because that absent-minded professor thing, I'm afraid to say it's real. So definitely, you are the agent of your own education, and make sure you just keep your eye on that prize. So I know we only have 3 minutes. Allyson, did you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the way you require those letters of recommendation, that pre-work is good preparation for when you get into the workforce and it's performance evaluation time, and your employer says, go ahead and write your evaluation and I'll look at it. It happens. That is a very good strategy, Tony. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know we only have maybe a couple minutes left, so I'm just going to invite both of you, Ariel and Allyson. Are there any last things that you'd like to leave our folks here with some wisdom about paying for school, or about any big topic that maybe we haven't had a chance to talk about? So Ariel, let's start with you, and then we'll turn to Allyson.
Sure. Tony, thank you. I just want to mention that graduate school has the potential to be very expensive. Right. So you want to make sure that when you're considering graduate schools, that you understand what the cost of attendance is going to be, what your expected cost of attendance is going to be, and ultimately have a plan in place for how you're going to repay that student loan debt, because it will not be fun if you amass $200,000, $300,000 of student loans, and you end up making, $40,000, $50,000 a year. That'll create a lot of stress and anxiety for you. So often what I tell students is, again, look for the programs that are going to align with your professional aspirations, understand what their funding structures are. Again, I'll just put a very quick plug in there and say again that at Princeton, we do fully fund all of our students. And we also provide a very generous living stipend. So it's important to understand where you're applying into. Also, there are other avenues in which you can take, right, to help reduce the cost of attendance at that respective institution. In undergrad, I was a community advisor. Some schools call it an RA or a resident advisor. So there are similar opportunities in graduate school. Right. So like if you were to become a resident director, the graduate level version of an RA or a CA, oftentimes that will cover the cost of housing and also fully cover the cost of your tuition at that school. Right. So if there are different employment opportunities at that school, like I remember when I was applying for graduate school, I told myself, listen, if I have to become a janitor to get this degree covered, that's what I'm willing to do. Like that's how committed I am to pursuing, to completing this degree, but also to graduating with as little debt as possible. Right. So ask if there are any fellowship opportunities, if there are any graduate assistantship opportunities when you're considering those graduate schools. There is money available. You just have to be persistent about trying to find ways to find that money. Right. So, that's what I would encourage you to do, just as diligent as you are about finding these right graduate programs. When you find them, make sure that you're reaching out to the admissions committee, to financial aid, whatever offices are available on campus, to say, listen, like, I'm committed to this school. I just need a little support. Like, how can you help me do that? That would be my word of advice.
I wanted to deal with the issue of graduate school is just like undergrad, just a little more reading. Graduate school is dramatically different from undergrad in so many ways. And so just a couple of them, one, undergraduate school is longer, it's 4 years, and this is shorter. There aren't the electives, the general education requirement in graduate school that you would find as an undergraduate student. Some programs provide a lot of opportunity to take electives and related courses and interdisciplinary courses, as I described our public diplomacy masters. But other programs are very rigid in terms of the curriculum, that it is sequential and you have to follow through and just take the courses that are provided. So there is more reading, but it's interesting that what the outcome, what the output is in graduate school is very different than undergrad. Some people have the impression for undergrad, you pretty much regurgitate what you've been told, the faculty pats you on the head and sends you on your way. In graduate school, it really is about you and what you see as your objective and your future and what you're trying to get out of this preparation for a profession. And this is at the master's degree level, not for PhD. And so thinking that, what do I want to get out of this? What am I bringing to the table? How am I wrestling with this information to prepare me for my career, which is very, very different than what most people do when they are pursuing a bachelor's degree. So again, the advice we've given throughout, make sure you're going to the website, make sure you're asking the admissions office about what is that experience like. Students can be full-time, which they're very different than a part-time master's degree student. Someone who's working, someone who has family at home is very different than someone who is attending graduate school full-time and they just graduated from college. And so you'll also have that difference of lifestyle that people are living while they're in graduate school versus undergrad. If it was a residential community, pretty much people were the same, but that's not the case when you go to graduate school. So the communities are varied, they're interesting, they're fantastic, but you want to make sure you know either what is the best fit for you, what's closest to you and what's affordable, and where you are really going to thrive, because those environments can be very different and the expectations can be different as well. So Tony, that's it.
Thank you so much, Allyson Hill, Ariel, Matos. We are at time, so I'm just going to give the last word to our host, Carmen Metzera, see if there's any more news from APSIA. But as always, it's been a great conversation. So thank you for sharing so many kernels of wisdom with us. Carmen?
Well, thanks to you, Tony, for facilitating this great conversation and drawing out all of that wisdom that's inside Allyson and Ariel. To our attendees, thank you for being here. This is one of many ways that we hope to make it easier for you to figure out which of those graduate schools, if any, is the right fit. And I think the biggest reality that came through from this conversation is that it does. It takes discernment, it takes learning, it takes research and homework, and looking at yourself and looking at programs. And we offer lots of ways for you to do that, including even just 2 days from now, we'll have more than 25 graduate schools all online to answer some of those key questions. So we look forward to seeing all of you at future APSIA events and staying in touch, and hopefully welcoming you as APSIA students sometime in the future. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Ariel. Thank you, Allyson. Thanks to everyone. Have a great rest of your day.